right. Anthony Scaramucci, of course, Donald Trump's National Finance Committee, key guy here on all things financial. Is it a big deal, Anthony, when the party nominee isn't going to the party?
You know, I just think it's interesting that the Washington Post is colorizing it because the other side's doing the same thing. They're going to be focused, Neil, in the last 15 days of this thing on political events and getting out there and campaigning. And so Governor Pence tonight doing a fundraiser, tomorrow night.
But Trump never did them that much, Anthony, to begin with. And I'm wondering if there was...
Doesn't like them.
Well, I guess what I'm asking you is this a reflection of just what has been a sort of hands-off policy between the two of them, that is, between the party itself and Donald Trump, where, you know, now, of course, they're not as out in the open about it, but neither one wants to do much for the other.
You know, I know it's being characterized that way, and just candidly, I don't think Mr. Trump likes these fundraisers. He doesn't like being in the position. He likes thanking people, Neil, but he doesn't like asking them for the money. And so that was a bone of contention for all of us working with him. I think it's a level of his politeness.
And that's always the case, right, Anthony? I know you had the same kind of conundrum with Mitt Romney and other candidates you work for. I mean,
Governor Romney was like that too, Neil. You know, what's interesting about Governor Pence, he's a formidable guy because he comes across with that charming, Opie personality, but he digs his hand right into your pocket viciously. So I love him for that. He makes it easier for us on the fundraising side when we're putting these things together.
Speaking of Pence, just a side note here. Is it my imagination, or does he actually literally sound more like Ronald Reagan every day?
I love the guy. Look, I think he has a lot of his Midwestern mannerisms. Growing up in Indiana, Mr. Reagan grew up in Illinois, and I think what you find with him, he's a great listener, Neil. You know, one of the things you taught me when I try to play a host on television of Wall Street Week is to listen and do less talking, and Governor Pence is great at that on television too. I thought he was great on Megyn Kelly's show last night. I don't know if you saw it, but he's wonderful.
Was he on that show?
Yeah, I know you only watched this one, but
let me just get your sense of things. And of course, you didn't need any media training, young man, so you're being duly modest.
I got that at my Italian dinner table on Sundays, Neil, just like you.
But here's the thing. You've always taught me, talk about it, I'll go back at you as an investor, go counter whatever is the trend. It wouldn't hurt you to just challenge the conventional wisdom. It applies to investments, I'm sure. It's not that simple, obviously. But I think it applies to this consensus that is built up everywhere. The race is over now. The only issue is how big is Hillary Clinton's victory. And I always think, you know, we've got a ways to go here. Some polls are tightening. Even the polls in states where, you know, Hillary has a lead, it's not a huge lead. So what do you think of that and that consensus that seems to build in this case with 13 days to go?
Well, listen, I mean, the data that we have is there's millions upon millions of people that are registered to vote, Neil, that did not vote in 2012 or even in 2008. There's 1.5 million, as an example, of white registered voters, uneducated in Pennsylvania. Now, the polls are expecting them not to turn out again in 2016.
Right.
That may be the case, but when I drive around those areas with Donald Trump Jr. or Eric Trump, there's a placard in every lawn. It's Trump, Pence, Trump, Pence, Trump, Pence. And so maybe they're not going to turn out. At our last fundraiser in Vegas that Connell was referencing, Mr. Trump said, hey, they're waiting in line 8 hours in the pouring rain to see one of our rallies. It's sort of hard to believe that they're not going to show up on Election Day. So listen, I'm a big believer as a competitive sports player my whole life.
You and me both.
You play to the last second, and you play to the last out, or whatever metaphor you want to use. And so we'll all know the answer on November 9th. And whatever happens, I hope the country can come together because we've got a lot of problems that we have to fix, Neil. Whatever side of the political spectrum you sit on, we've got to fix these problems for the American people.
On those Trump-Pence signs that you're looking at, are they hard to see from the back of your limo, or because that's tinted glass?
Well, you know, Neil, because I'm so short, I have this elevation thing in my limo. Okay, so I'm able to see over the window.
Touché.
I know you're surprised by that.
Touché. The host of Wall Street Week, pretty good investment wonderkin, Anthony Scaramucci. It is something to bear watching, whatever everyone is telling you.
I think it's going to be close, Neil.
Well, I just think the consensus, as is almost always the case, is wrong. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily anything, but most of the time it is wrong. So we'll see.